and welcome back to Car Design Dialogues Europe. I'm Christopher Ludwig. We're into the heart of it now. We've had some great design reviews, some fascinating panels, and this session we're going to get an opportunity to dig deeper into some very important digital and rendering tools with Substance by Adobe. I think you've seen already from the design reviews and panels just how important 3D visualization clearly is in the car design processes, and especially as car designers innovate more with materials, including new types, but also combinations, textures, topographies, and alongside it, we're seeing big leaps in the technology and tools used as well. So that's why in this session, Substance by Adobe will present how to use the Adobe 3D toolset, including Substance materials, specifically to improve realism in color, material, and fabric creativity in digital. We'll also have a special focus on substance materials within Autodesk VRED. Before I bring on our panelists, I want to draw your attention to a poll. We want to get some of your insight here. So if you remember, right next to your screen on the right, you should be in the stage chat. And right next to the chat, you'll see polls. So just go onto the polls. You've got a couple of questions here. I'll just read them out for you and ask you to vote, and then we'll reveal more of the results at the end. The first question: are you using VR headsets in your current workflows? Yes or no? So vote when you get a chance and let us know. Second question: in which software are you using Substance materials? Are you using it VRED, Deltian, UE4, Unity, 3ds Max, Maya, or others? If it's others, write them in the chat. Let us know what other ones you're using. And the third question: are you currently using Substance materials in your workflow? Yes or no? So we'll leave that poll open throughout the session. You'll get a chance to vote and comment again and put questions through. It's my pleasure now to introduce our two expert speakers, Pierre Mahus, Head of Special Projects, 3D and Immersive at Substance by Adobe, and he'll be joined by Pascal Seifert, VRED Technical Product Manager at Autodesk. Pierre and Pascal, great to have you with us here at Car Design Dialogues.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
My pleasure. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Pierre, and we'll come back at the end for some questions. So audience, put through your questions during the presentation.
All right. Thank you again for having us today, and glad to be joining Car Design News Europe session, especially right after Skoda design review, as it's such an amazing design studio based in Europe. And I'm more than happy to have Pascal Seifert joining us today to showcase VRED live and how to use substance material within VRED, and even more than just the materials. It will be pretty cool. So first thing first, let's dig a little bit into Adobe 3D. And you might not be aware, it's fairly new. You might know pretty well Adobe, and especially Adobe Creative Cloud 2D tools, such as Photoshop or Illustrator. But Substance and Allegorithmic have been joining the Adobe family now for 2 years and have a 3D portfolio dedicated to both digital materials, but also rendering and even sculpting and modeling in VR. So with Medium, so it's something we would like to highlight also during this presentation. So we will be focusing in the first part around substance materials and substance software, and then we will give you a little bit of showcase of the latest tools such as Dimension, Aero, and Medium. So starting with the origin of everything when it comes to Substance by Adobe is around 3D texturing and digital materials. So what is digital materials is how the material will react to light and how then you will apply them to the different part of your design. And that's the 3D texturing part. So what you see on the left is the mesh, the just and only geometry. And on the right, after creating those materials and applying to the different parts of the geometry. Something I wanted also to show you is a little bit of a video. I know that you've seen some of those videos right before the session started. And here I took on purpose something that is not in the automotive industry, that is more focusing on the fashion industry. but to show you the level of realism that you can reach today with digital materials. And obviously here, also the materials are substance materials. So you can have this level of blending between fabrics, but also metallic effects, embossing, yarn, color being blended, embroidery. And that's really what we've been working on heavily in Substance by Adobe for now many years. And we are coming from the gaming industry, where we are the leading solution, and we expanded to the other industry with this craftsmanship of digital materials, I would say. So let's dig into the substance material format and capabilities. So I wanted to highlight you the different capabilities of the substance materials, and then we will jump directly to the VRED live demo with Pascal. So first thing first is about realism and PBR. So you might see in some of our presentation or others presentation the term of PBR, standing for physically based rendering. It's exactly what I was mentioning before, is how the material will be reacting to light. And the beauty of that is that also you can use it for high-end imagery, still images, but also real-time experiences have you seen before. So for instance, the video I was showcasing was Unreal Engine being used with substance material. Here are a couple of examples of either freelance visualization artists, such as Fisher Dye, or brands that are using substance, such as Forestia. So a couple of examples of screenshots of those material being used, and also example of fabrics where we are able to combine all those effects together, like here on the textile coming from substance source. Then there is a capability to have parametric materials, and that is fairly new when you are not familiar with substance materials, that instead of having a dead set of texture maps, what you are manipulating is a parametric materials, meaning you can change the pattern. You can change here, for instance, independently the roughness of the pattern parts in order to really match with your design intent. So having one materials, in the end, you have a library of materials, as the materials have parameters. And you will see that those parameters are available in the different integration, and especially in VRED. So that's what I was mentioning. You can, for instance, have a wood, apply a clear coat on top of it, and switch between with it or without it to take some design decision and color, material, and finish decision. The third point we wanted to highlight also today is how much textures and digital materials can complement the modeling, or even sometimes replace the modeling depending on the needs and the target of the usage of the texture. So here, for instance, we wanted to apply a fairly complex texture to the exterior of this door panel, and we were able to do it through the texture only. So here the geometry is flat, and everything belongs to the texture. And you can do those kind of gradient effects or even painting by hands if you want to have the full control of this merge with the regular part of the car. Finally, substance work everywhere. That's something that is really key for us, is being able to use our substance materials in the widest range of product as possible. And here, it's not even everything, because anyway, you can export the maps, the textures, and plug it to any other tools that can be not listed here. Then the product that are listed here, you have the capability to change the parameters staying in those tools, whether it's a free plugin like in Unreal and Unity, or a native integration like in VRED that we will see right after. So from the game engine Unreal Unity to the modeling and animation tools to the rendering tools such as VRED or DeltaGen. But best thing is to see it in action. So I will leave the end to Pascal for a live demo of substance material within VRED. Your turn, Pascal.
Yep. Thanks, Pierre. Thanks for the introduction and welcome to my beautiful home. Let's jump right into our live demo I prepared for today. So I hope you can see my screen. Righty, I think the easiest way to start for someone who's new to Substance, but even to experts to get the materials is Substance Source, which is a great source of thousands of different materials you can download once you subscribe and can directly use that in your 3D application. Of course, you can go to the web browser, download from there, and then import it into your current scene in VRED, or you can use our integration. We call it web shop integration, which is basically a web browser where you have access to all your Substance material, same like in the web browser. The main difference is that the materials you download from here are directly imported into your scene. So there's no additional work to do for you. You can also change the download directory if you want to link that to your current project, or if you want to change that on a global level. You can also go into our web shop integration and change the download path here, very similar to what you can do in a web browser. And once that material is downloaded, you have seen that probably in the background, it ends up in your material editor from where you can drag it directly onto your 3D model. So I downloaded that car paint, and once it's in there, right, you can see it. You can start tweaking the parameters. As Pierre mentioned, the materials, or most of the materials, are parametric. So there is a math behind that, and you are able to expose all these parameters. You can change at any time and then capture also presets out of it. And let's do that for that material as an example. So what I will do here is changing first my mapping type from a triplanar to UV, due to the fact we have some proper UV here for that roof. And then you can simply start tweaking your material. And maybe the first thing we change is the pattern size of that material, and maybe get rid of that grid for the intakes, and change the color. So you are really, really free, and you see that everything you do is reflected in real time, right? So you can also, if you're happy with your settings, create presets out of that you don't have to set that over and over again. And the smart thing on these presets is we are still using that one Substance material, and all it does is when you execute a preset, it runs through the Substance material graph and executes or produces new output textures that are then reflected on your model. So you do not actually duplicate the material, you just trigger different settings out of that. So, and that's basically it. So you have then created out of that single material different presets, and also the one that I captured. It is also possible for all these materials. It really depends on what kind of material you have, and what shots are you doing. If you're doing close-ups, you can tweak the texture output size. So currently my repeating pattern is only 512 pixels, but you can change that to a higher resolution, and you see that now the flakes look much, much better. And it is depending on how complex your material graph is in the background, the Substance engine runs through, and also your texture size. This toggling might take a while. So we're just talking about a few milliseconds here, but to the fact you generate new textures over and over again, that can take some time. But there's a nice feature in VRED as well that can speed up that a little bit. It is in the preferences. So if you go to Substance, it is possible to cache these textures. So whenever you run a preset, the texture that was generated out of that graph is stored in the VPB file itself. So you don't have to run through the graph over and over again. You simply save the texture in the file. So very similar like you would create a normal material. And that allows you to switch the materials much faster, especially when you have high resolution textures. You're pretty fast if you have variants of it to toggle through them. Now, that can also be helpful in VR, that you don't have to wait while the engine is executing, that you save the textures within the file. In that example, in our file, in the extend file, we are using substance materials nearly everywhere. So let me quickly change tone mapping that we can see the interior a little bit better. So these materials are also substance, yeah, and I'm able to change my settings at any time for each material. And what is smart as well here, let's change that color as well to this. Yeah, I'm not a designer, but looks good for me right now. And what you can do as well, if you have these combinations of different materials and different presets, and that you want to build some logic, and therefore you can use our variant sets or our variant manager quite easily by just creating a new set. And then you can simply drag and drop your material in here, change one of these presets, and do the same maybe for that material. So you can actually combine them, say, okay, I want to have the brown. And if you executed all these materials, different materials and different presets are executed at the same time, so you can build some variant logics out of that. Another thing I'd like to show you, because it goes beyond just being a material, it also tackles a little bit the parametric workflow. Some modelers are used to using Rhino, Grasshopper, or Dynamo and Alias. Is a workflow where you could think about replacing some geometry, for example. So here in our demo, quickly change the camera settings back. I have a geometry rim here, right? That's quite obvious. We also have, I think, these variation for the rim. Let me quickly find that. It's in here. Yep. We also have the original substance wheel as a geometry, right? If I hover over, you can see that's 3D geometry. But we also have a nice example in here using a simple plane. So you can see the wireframe. And if I look into the material and disable the displacement for a second, you can see it is a flat plane material. But as soon as you activate, oh, that was the wrong direction. Sorry for that. But as soon as you activate the displacement, it looks like real geometry, right? Or at least good enough to go through some variations and discuss how many spokes you want to have, for example, like we can do in that example. So let's change the spokes to maybe 6. And maybe also change the color of the rim itself, maybe to kind of orange, and also change the reflectivity of that. So it looks a little bit more like aluminium than chrome. And simply drag your materials in here. Again, it's probably not the nicest one, but what I like to show is that it's super, super fast to create new variations with substance materials inside your real-time scene and also in VR. And this could be an alternative workflow to maybe using parametric geometry. Yeah, that one. Another nice example we came across is using substance material for things like stitches, or so not as a material, just as an addition. And I'd like to show you how that works or how that looks like. So in substance itself, I have a material here, which is a stitch material, cross stitch material. If we look a little bit closer into it, I can show you the output. So we have some nice normal maps in here. And also the color textures, and this is just a repeatable pattern of a stitch, right? And to export that out of Substance or to store it in Substance, I think most of you are aware of the workflow. You simply publish that SBSR file, which is the container you can reuse also in other applications then. And let's call that no color and save it. And in VRED itself, it's pretty easy. You create a new material, a substance material, because this is a special shader that addresses all the needs of the substance material, the diffuse map, the normal map, etc. And you load your material in here. So let me quickly check, where is it in my Adobe? No color. Here we go. So and then you simply track your material on your geometry. And as you can see, this is just a simple geometry on top of my steering wheel. Quickly change the color. All right, what does not match right now is the projection method. So it is imported as triplanar as a default. So if we change that to UV, and we have some proper UVs for that geometry set up already, I can quickly show you that as well in our UV editor. This is how it looks like from a UV point of view. And if I show you the texture, you see that it's using that pattern, and then it's repeating over and over again. So we have our material in here. It's still looking like a flat planar texture, right? And we can improve that as well by using that displacement approach I showed you. And then let's place it a little bit like in that direction, -1. And then we also might want to change the offset so we can see it. And I also want to get rid of the cutout transparency, right? And then we have some, I would say nice looking textures for our material or for our stitches in addition, which is parametric. So currently there is not much you can change except the metalness. And I will show you how to change that quickly and re-import the material in VRED. So this also takes only a few seconds. So let's expose our color channels, for example. So we have a red one, a purple one, and a bluish one in here. So you simply go there and say, hey, export that as a new output. Output color 1. Right, and then we say, take that one. Output color 2. And then also that one. And the next thing I'd like to do I'd like to expose it in my UI, because in Substance I am able to define how my UI in VRED should look like later. So you can build these new tabs, you can build new entries in here, you can set the labels, you can decide if you want to have a slider or if you want to have a drop down. And in our case, the only thing I have to do is I want to align it in the same group like I have my metalness in here. So I can simply copy that stitch out of here, which is basically that tab here. I want to have the color values in there as well. And I copy that in here and in that one and in that one. And now they are all grouped under the same tab in VRED. So you can simply then publish your SBSAR file as previous, which is a save, right? And in VRED, the only thing you have to do is you reload the stuff. So now you have the new material we just saved with the new values, and you are able to tweak your color inputs inside VRED as you like. And then of course store a new preset out of that, make some variations pretty fast. Let's drag that in here and you create a new one. And then you can simply toggle between all your variations for stitches. So it is really a flexible approach that leaves the creativity to the visualization process. So in your very at the end in your process, you can make changes and make decisions on something that was maybe not defined yet. All right, and then the last thing I'd like to show you, because it's also a pretty cool workflow in my opinion, is with Substance you can also create environments, environment panorama. So textures that are used on a dome or on a backdrop, and you can do that in Substance as well. So there is also a template if you create a new Substance material. It is called the Studio Panorama, and if you start from here, I think that's pretty good. I have prepared something already to save some time here. Let's have a quick look. And I'm using as an input an HDR image. This is one we have created some time ago, which is an HDR from inside a light booth from VRED. And in addition to that, I added some pixel processors to change the color temperature to my needs, and also it is possible to add additional lights to my scene, right? So basically a parametric HDR. So in VRED, let's change first the model. Right, because we also have an alternative in here. Or no, maybe first the environment. All right, maybe let's get rid of the glow. And then we can also look at that clay model. In that case, for the clay model, we are using a texture. I think it was created with Substance Painter, if I remember right. And I think, let's turn on the autofocus as well. And I think if you look close to the model, that looks pretty good already. This is not parametric, but it was created with Painter, and this is it looks like a real clay model in my opinion, and you can navigate through it in real time. So, but what I want to show you is the environment. So here you can see that's a virtual light booth, spectral light from VRED. And if I look at that material, you can see it is not just an HDR, it is actually a Substance material. And I am able to change values, like for example, the color temperature of that. Currently it is a daylight temperature, so 6,500, but I can change that to a warmer approach if I like. No? So my model appears completely different in here. And if I want to, I can also add additional lights in here. So it's kind of window looking in here. And I'm able to change, for example, the tiling if I want to see these reflections, or maybe the light. So instead of using a color temperature, I can also make it a little bit bluish. So, and every time I change these parameters, VRED is running through the Substance engine. So on the clay model, let me quickly turn on an override material, so you can actually better see what is happening, or what is reflecting in here. So, right, let's change the color again to more greenish. Yep, so all in real time. And of course, we can also change back to the alias model, which looks now pretty tiny. But I think you get the point, what we want to show. I think that's basically it from my side, and covered, I think, most of the possibilities you have with Substance Designer or Substance materials in VRED.
Definitely a great way to showcase how to use Substance. Let me share my screen again and going back to the presentation. I hope you can see it. So you have seen a little bit of the different tools directly within the live demos of Pascal. You've seen Substance Designer, and we will and also Substance source materials. And I will also highlight you a little bit of Substance Alchemist and Substance Painter, as also mentioned by Pascal. The clay version of the car has been made out of Substance Painter using a substance source material. By the way, you could imagine like why doing a clay version when it's virtual, but one scenario that we envision is that if you see the scale 1 clay model every day in the design studio, and you really want to compare also the digital version or the alternative or the variations that are digitals, you want to compare apple with apple. So you need to have something that looks similar, because if you are comparing a version of the car that has a full car paint and materials, chroma, etc., with something with clay, it will be anyway not like a fair play comparison. So that's why we did bring the clay materials within Substance Source. But let's dig into the different tools. So you've seen Substance Designer being used by Pascal. So it's a graph approach where you can generate those generative design materials kind of thing. So here we have an example of a speaker grid where you can change the different parameters independently. And then using Substance Designer, you can have this fully procedural approach, combining different patterns together, or you can also be in scan-based and create what we call the hybrid materials. When you are blending like a scan, here a leather, with a pattern that is procedural. So that's definitely an interesting way of doing things. And here, for instance, we did a full procedural fabrics garment where you can change independently the different yarn, color, and style, so that you have a very flexible way of doing things. And I think it was perfectly illustrated by Pascal. Is on our end, we really want to empower the creative people, whether it's a color, material, and finish designer or a visualization artist, in order to be able to provide the best results and the best experience. And then you could imagine, oh, but these materials are too flexible. It's like, I don't want anyone to do whatever color they want. If it is the case, you can also block some parameters or allow only few variations or combination, depending on what you are aiming at. So you can be doing it through preset, or for each parameters to say that you have only the capability to switch between this and that value. Also wanted to highlight another example, less of interior design and more exterior design around car paints and flakes. So on our end, using procedural approach, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. So here, for instance, very large flakes, changing the flakes density, changing also the flakes orientation and randomization. And then depending on what you are aiming at, as I was mentioning before, you can also identify that to replicate exactly the car paint that you have in your library, there is only few parameters that you can change, or even no parameters. You're just switching from one preset to another and reach the digital twin version of the metal you have in your library. So again, there is here two very separate approaches, one that is mimicking the reality and one that is trying to explore digitally things and then see how much you can make it real in the real life. And those two scenarios are definitely can be addressed using Substance, but it might definitely be not the same user using Substance for those two scenarios. Also, something I wanted to highlight is how you can also combine it with Adobe Illustrator, for instance. So here it's a very strong graphic design. You probably have something that is smoother in interior design, but I wanted to highlight that you can have shapes coming from Illustrator that you have been splitting in Illustrator through different parts that can be changed, and then bringing them to Substance Designer. You can afterwards have the full control of this, I would say, procedural or generative pattern, and have a full flexibility by changing the color or even the properties. You can have some parts that are more metallic, some other parts that are more glossy, depending on your needs. So that's pretty powerful. That was for Substance Designer. Now Substance Alchemist is a tool that we envision for the color material and finish designer to have a quick way to create digital material out of a physical sample. We are here to expand the real world with virtual capabilities. And here the idea is taking one picture and then being able to use it to generate variations, to add embossing, etc. So here I have a short video of, I would say, a color material and finish designer journey on a footwear design where you get this leather sample available and you will be using it in the digital world. So just taking a fairly simple picture with a cell phone, bringing it to Alchemist, you will be able to quickly generate a PBR material out of it, a tileable materials. And here we are using also artificial intelligence because we want it to be as simple and quick as possible. So we've been training an AI on a large library of materials so that when you are bringing your own one picture, we will do our best to create the closest result. And then bringing it to Dimension, you will see afterwards. Bringing it to VRED, you have seen it before. Bringing it to Maya, you will see right after. As you have your digital materials in SBSIR format, Substance format, it's ready to be used anywhere. So it could be used in a very simple way, bringing it to Substance Painter because you want to add details such as stitches and decals and detailing that you want full control on. And then as soon as you have everything done, you can export it here, for instance, to Maya and V-Ray. Again, all the materials that we are creating are ready to be used in a wide range of tools, depending on the needs and the different users. So bringing that here, for instance, to Dimension to do the final rendering and lighting scene is something that is possible. And again, keep in mind that this shoe, whatever is the pattern and the design, the original leather is coming from this picture that the CMF designer took of the physical sample that he has on his desk. So we really want to make color material and finish design as simple to bring to digital as it has been done for modeling and for digital sketching using Photoshop, for instance. So adding on top of it, like you've seen some embossing, here more in detail how it can be done. We just have a library of filter in the interface of Alchemist. And by the way, you can create your own filter using Substance Designer. And then this filter have a couple of inputs that you can customize in the interface of Substance Alchemist. So here, for instance, you have by default pattern, and then you can have your own pattern with a black and white image, and you are bringing it directly into Substance Alchemist and deciding about the power of the embossing directly within the interface. So simple and quick, that's definitely what we are aiming at. Finally, Substance Painter, the third tool we have, you've seen a little bit of it right before. It's really a tool where you are combining the digital materials with the 3D mesh. And you will apply some details that are very specific to some parts of your models. So here you can see the gaps and the stitches. You can also have a direct link with, for instance, here Unreal. So you have a synchronization between the two, and where when you are painting in Substance Painter, for instance, a little bit of displacement on the side of the seat, you will see it appearing in the real time, also in Unreal. On the opposite around, if you are creating a gap, you will also see it appearing live. So that's the kind of freedom that you can have. And also what is very interesting is in Substance Painter, what we control is all the interaction you do with your mesh. So you can paint the stitches and then change the color afterward, change the spacing in between the stitches, and then it will be recomputed on the fly. It's not like pixel based. It's really the interaction based. Same thing here in Substance Painter. We have applied this kind of materials, metallic materials with some holes, and you can change independently the metalness, but also the color of the different holes and the types of the holes. Finally, Substance Source. So Substance Source is our library of materials that are ready to use. The idea here is to provide you with a generic library of materials that allow you to have leather, Alcantara, OLED screens, plastic, carbon fibers, etc., in order to quickly apply it to your interior. And here we really see it as complementary to what you've seen before with Alchemist and Substance Designer, meaning your own material library. So for the materials that you don't want to spend too much time, you're bringing directly Substance Source materials that are ready to use. And for some really custom materials, then you can use Substance Alchemist, Substance Designer, and you can even download those materials and change them using Substance Designer or Alchemist afterwards. So now we have more than 6,000 materials. All of them are parametric, and we made a dedicated selection around model. And as I was mentioning before, the idea was to really being able to see the car in the different states of its process in clay, with Dynoc on top of it, or the final rendering of the car. So photorealism and creative freedom are key for us. A couple of examples on the different materials for car design. We have obviously car paints, as you have seen before. There we can change independently how glossy or matte it is, the different angles of the flakes, some iridescent effects, etc., are the kind of things that can be done. And here you can see the materials that Pascal was using on the roof of the car, where you can really blend the modeling and the texturing world. Carbon fibers are also very easy to be done, especially procedurally. Another great rendering from Pascal here. Leather, you can combine scan-based materials, like here the leather itself, and then having the stitches being fully procedural, and then being you can customize and change very easily. Same thing for those kind of Alcantara, and finally some speaker grids that are fully procedural here. So long story short, what I was mentioning, and Pascal also, is that you can have this unified material library that you can reuse across the different tools, across the different departments in the company, in order to achieve what you are aiming at, either the creativity on the design and color, material, and finish side, up to hyper realism for marketing and communication. So that was it for Substance. I have some time left here to told you a little bit about the other tools we have within the Adobe 3D offer. The first one being Dimension. So Dimension is really how 2D and 3D can live together, and how quickly somebody that have more a 2D designer background can do a 3D rendering, simple 3D rendering. And just to give you an example here, just to render this aircraft seat, if you want to afterwards do some retake in Photoshop, what you will be doing is to export the different passes and what we call on the bottom clown mask, so that it makes the Photoshop retouch easier afterwards. So one example among others. Also, Aero is our augmented reality tool. So if you have your models being ready in Dimension, you can export it to Aero, and then it's a free app on the App Store where you can experiment your different designs. So here, for instance, also in Dimension, you can manage the alignment of the different models, and so you can have a wider range of models. Here you can also notice that the textures and the materials are lower quality, we need to optimize and to find the right trade-off when bringing it to augmented reality. That's definitely something that's important. And what is interesting here is that the substance materials, you can, based on the same materials, go for a very high-end 8K texture to a 1K or 2K texture in order to use it in augmented reality experience, for instance. Finally, I wanted to showcase a little bit of Medium by Adobe, which is our latest modeling tool, sculpting tool in VR, where we really want to empower the digital sculptor with an immersive experience of sculpting, like in the real life digital clay. And so it's really aiming at concept design. For that, it's fairly efficient. So you can obviously start as usual your sketching ideas in Photoshop, and then switch to VR in order to start to sculpt. So you can import the sketches for having some references, or even loading a couple of images. And then you start to push and pull your digital clay, and you can create your own sculpting tools. So if you have a shape and you want to turn it into a sculpting tool, you can do it at any time. And then you're always in VR, so staying with your model, moving it around. You can obviously having the scale 1 experience, but then you can also scale it or making it smaller. And as you can notice here, it's a very conceptual design. Here is Justin, who are 3D artist in Adobe 3D, that is exploring this kind of seat design that afterwards is also ready to be used. So that was Medium. You've seen Photoshop before, Medium for sculpting. And then no reason you can also import it to Painter to add some detailing I was showcasing before, stitches, caps, decals, and then rendering it in Dimension, for instance, or exporting it to any kind of other tools, whatever it's VRED or Maya, V-Ray, or any kind of other tools. Here it's really to showcase the different usages and how interesting it can be for concept design. We've been really experiencing the fact that you can build a 3D model in a very short amount of time using Medium. And also 3D models that are made out of mediums are ready to be 3D printed. So if you want to do quick loop of iteration also with physical world, it's a quick win. So that was it for us. I just wanted to mention the fact that if you want to play around with Substance software, you can download free trial on our website, substance3d.com. You can also access to Medium directly out of Oculus Store if you have an Oculus headset. And you can also download Aero on your iPhone, for instance, directly from the App Store. On Substance Source, we also have some free samples. If you want to play around, download a couple of materials, check it on your on VRED, for instance, if you have seen. I also wanted to mention that the stitches that Pascal was showcasing are directly available on our website, Substance Share, and you will find it by typing stitch on Substance Share search engine, and you will find it if you want to play around with it. So that was it. I also wanted to introduce Victor, who is taking care of the business development for design and architecture, and also highlighting my email. Feel free to reach out if you have any additional question. And thank you again to Car Design News for having us. And if you have any additional question, I will be more than happy to answer.
Okay, Pierre, Pascal, thank you so much. I love the hands-on. I love going through the details of that. Great response. We're responding strongly to representation of these tools. Let's start quickly, though, by returning to the poll that we asked at the beginning of the session and check out some of the results and maybe give people a last chance to vote. So just a reminder to everyone, just to the right of the screen, click on polls on the stage. And we have those three questions there. I'll read one once again and then we'll show the results. The first one was, are you using VR headsets in your results. Let's pull up the results. If anyone has the last note to put in now, and I would say the results there are very close, to say the least. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's pretty much neck and neck. We've got basically 51.9% no versus 41% yes. So it's pretty much split. Sounds a bit like the protocol there. We're pretty much down the middle, whether you're using VR now or not. That's interesting. And does that surprise you at all, Pierre? I mean, is that, Pascal, is that around what you kind of see in the industry right now about that?
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know about you, Pascal, but indeed it's something we've been witnessing. That on my end, I do remember that VR headsets used to be something that was fairly special, like having one headset for the whole studio. And I see it become more and more something that everyone have on his desk, especially with some remote work. And I see, like, if you compare to 2 years ago, it would have probably be 2080 or even lower. So the growth of the users of VR headsets is pretty big. And I'd really encourage anyone to play around with VR in general, whether it's for design review using, for instance, VRED, or for sculpting using Medium. It's really an experience that is fairly game-changing, I would say. But I would let Pascal also share.
We see the same, especially working everyone from home. There is that need now to collaborate, not only using VR, but also collaborate with your colleagues in the same scene and talk about the same 3D model. That's definitely happening. What we see also with people now working from home, that there are two different types of headsets, right? One are these working in large scale tracking areas, but others just want to have it somewhere in your at home and pull it from the desk and jump into the model. So actually the cheaper ones. But there's definitely an increase. But I think in collaboration in general, not only in VR, but VR collaboration, there's a benefit for everyone, I think.
Okay, thanks. Hopefully my sound's a little bit better there. I know my microphone had slightly disconnected there a moment ago. I hope it's better there now. Sorry about that. And the other question we asked was, in which substance are you using in which software are you using substance materials? And there the vote was pretty strong. VRED was 50% of the respondents. I don't think everyone could vote multiple times there, so I'm sure it wasn't as dichotomous as that, but about 50% using VRED, about 34% using others, and a kind of a mix in between there. So I think that's interesting. And then last, and this is the opportunity question for you guys, really, I suppose, are you currently using substance materials in your workflow? And 55% are not. So there we are. There's certainly a market to reach and an audience that's interested in it. So some interesting results there. We're going to wrap up shortly, but I did want to turn to some of the questions that were here. There was an interesting discussion, and your colleague Pierre was kind of answering it. But there was a question around verifying the digital designs into 3D. After you'd created them. And your colleague gave a good answer around the ability to do that quickly in 3D, then work with a supplier to do it. But did you want to add anything to that? Because the question from someone who is a supplier was just wants to make sure that they're using materials that are as true to production as possible, if you see, to not kind of create problems later. So how do you work to verify that as kind of in the digital process as well?
I think it's really sorry. Working with material suppliers has always been very key for us. And so we really envision the substance software, and especially substance designer or substance alchemist, as being like a tool to help the whole industry to iterate more easily on materials. Today, you create a sample, you send it over, it's not the right color, not the right roughness, bringing back, etc. And it sounds like if we can agree more easily on the virtual version of it, we might help everyone to have a better insight. And also, I mean, you always, when you are card designers, you're always looking for having this final mock-ups that are true to life, etc. But it might arrive fairly late and for a fairly large amount of money. And so having those digital materials allowed you to explore more variation and see how it will look like, for instance, in VR, in VRED, almost, and you can even sit virtually, etc., and really see how the materials also will go together. And that's, I think, very key. Afterwards, you have all those materials you take decision about. You have this digital twin you can share back with your suppliers and converge on the final materials to be produced in the real life.
Excellent. So a collaborative process can speed up part of the process for sure. We've run out of time here, but I think, as Pierre noted, very much worth everyone in the audience with other questions to connect with our experts here. Pierre obviously gave context. There's links in the chat referenced about some free materials and things you can check out. But visit our booths as well, and also right on this platform, on the event platform, you can set up meetings, contact Pierre, contact Pascal, send a message if you want to have a chat further. I'm sure both will be more than willing to do so along with colleagues. So at hand and ready, but it just leaves me to thank you, Pierre, thank you, Pascal, for this great demonstration. Really interesting tools and exciting stuff, and important on the next routes of designs and concepts. So thanks to both of you. We look forward to continuing this conversation. Everyone else, stick around. We've got a great panel coming up. Call the Engineer. We're going to be looking at that intersection between design and engineering on some really specialist models, including Koenigsegg. So thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Prefix is an award-winning organization and recognized leader in the creation of prototypes, full-scale props and mock-ups, and the most technically advanced concept vehicles for the automotive, aviation, and mobility industries. The company is also a source for contract manufacturing, low-volume specialty vehicles, production paint programs, and component assembly. With nearly 300 employees and 4 impressive Midwestern USA facilities, Prefix offers an extremely wide range of capabilities, providing clients with a one-stop shop of crucial services. Actively involved with advanced technologies relating to electric vehicles, autonomous transportation, and urban mobility, Prefix has the departments and skills needed to work with companies throughout the entire development process.
Swallow it like who knew. Marching to the drums like